Hi, I'm Ryan Sadam, Chief Experience Officer and co-founder of Client Savvy. We are thrilled to have you here and even more excited to realize our dream of turning CXPS from an annual event into a true membership community. Over these next 3 days, we will begin a new journey as we learn, share, and co-create knowledge together. Today, day one of the CXPS launch event, we have a great keynote by Deb Knupp. Before we begin, I want to update you on how the new CXPS has been designed. We know you're not here just for the great content. In fact, the most common feedback we have heard over the years, it's our community that makes CXPS so special. We've poured our hearts into creating new and innovative ways to connect us with each other and give you a place to meet new friends, build close and trusting relationships with the core group of peers, and have opportunities to discover tools, services, and gurus that can help you on your CX journey. After our keynote today, we'll break out into virtual rooms. You'll have a chance to meet your CX cohorts. These cohorts are meant to be your inner circle of peers within the broader CXPS community. You'll work with this cohort today, tomorrow, and Friday. Within these breakouts, you'll share ideas, discuss challenges, and capture your learnings in our virtual whiteboard environment, Mural. I know we're asking a lot of you. You have to meet and trust new people. You have to learn new tools like Zoom and Mural. And I know some of you will find moments confusing, frustrating, or hard, but stick with it. We're new at this too, and we may find some bumps along the way. But we've designed some special interactions and we'll be providing resources to help you every step of the way. I promise that by the end of Friday, you will have made new friends and mastered some incredible collaboration tools that will make you and all of us all the better. We do want to take a moment and recognize our sponsors. Thank you, sponsors. We could not do this without all of your support. And here's a brief introduction to our platinum sponsor, Uninet, formerly Clearview Software. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. And thank you again, Uninet, for being our platinum sponsor yet again. Today, we're going to start with a keynote from Deb. That'll take us the next 45 minutes. After that, we'll be jumping into the Mural activity and the breakout rooms for collaboration and Q&A. I encourage you to go ahead and join the Mural if you haven't already. You should have received an email that has the link. We'll paste it into the Zoom chat window as well, so you can copy and paste that right now. Now, I'd like to welcome Deb Knupp, Managing Director of Growth Play. Deb has been part of the CXPS community for several years, and those who've seen her speak before know we're in for a real treat. Deb will be bringing us the ultimate X factor, unlocking sustainable, profitable growth through the human experience. Deb, take it away.
Thanks, Ryan. It's so great to be here today, talking with all of you about the ultimate X factor. But before we dig into our conversation, I want to set the stage. I want to share with you where this conversation about unlocking the sustainable, profitable growth that can come to us through human experience, that this was actually born in the year of 1888. In 1888, Dale Harbison Carnegie was born, an American author and lecturer until his death in 1955. You might say that Dale Carnegie was the OG of self-effectiveness and self-improvement, particularly as it relates to individuals. And in 1936, Carnegie wrote his most well-known book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, when we look at Dale Carnegie's motto, one of the things that he's most known for is saying, you can make friends in 2 weeks by becoming interested in other people, far more than you can do in 2 years trying to get other people interested in you. What a timeless message that was introduced in 1936, and here 80 years later, it remains an all-time bestseller. Now, the second date that will make some sense is the year 1979. Now, this was the year that a young Debbie Flaherty started 7th grade at Bedford Junior High School in Bedford, Texas. Yes, I was the young Debbie Flaherty. And as I began my experience in junior high, I had an opportunity to join the student council. Now, as we fast forward to the summer of my 7th grade year, when all the children in the neighborhood were being assigned to go to camps that included cabins and canoeing and campfires, my parents thought it would be a great idea to send me to student council leadership camp. Yes, leadership camp. It's as geeky as it sounds. But in this time, the leadership curriculum of this particular camp introduced me to a man named Zig Ziglar. Ziglar, who wrote his seminal book in 1975, was called See You at the Top. And like Carnegie, he also had a catch motto that he's really well known for. Ziglar said, you can have everything in your life that you want if you will just help other people get what they want. The second design influence to the ultimate X factor. And what the messages of these thought leaders all convey is the theme of the human experience that focuses first on other-centeredness. And in fact, the more other-centered a person's life orientation is, the more likely that he or she will achieve stratospheric success. Now, as we think of this other-centeredness, what does this have to do with organizations and more specifically, professional services? Well, today's conversation is going to look at the X factors as we think about CX in our client experience, EX in our employee experience, and then as we look at RX and BX, the revenue and brand experiences of our organization. My desire is for you to see the power that human experience can have in designing the ultimate of experiences for your clients, your employees, your prospects, and your communities at large. So let's dig in. By virtue of the fact that you are participating with us today at this year's CXps, it's important to recognize that you are here. By being here, you are very likely already creating a gap between you and your nearest competitor. By virtue of the fact that you are orienting yourself to learn about how to become more excellent in client experience or employee experience, gives you a tremendous advantage to uncover and to unlock the hidden potential that can drive meaningful growth. Growth that's economic and growth that has to do with people or well-being. Now, when you think about the competitive advantage, a big part of our discussion today is to look at our X factors with this understanding of what is necessary to truly sustain competitive differentiation. And as Doug Seidman says in his book, that the only true competitive differentiation comes when we have a capacity to out-behave the competition. So today, it's about understanding what can you do as an X factor leader to situate yourself in your leadership, to separate the efforts that you're doing in a way that can allow you to outbehave the competition for sustainable, profitable growth. So let's begin, though, with some additional context. Now, as I speak on the subject of CX and EX, I often find that there is a common orientation that we have when we think about the essence of the experience. And I want to posit, isn't it true that the essence of the X is really a series of efforts and activities so that you can get people, meaning your stakeholders, to really, really like you, so ultimately they will buy from you? Now, when you look at it on its face value, there's really nothing wrong with a desire to get people to like you in such a way that they will buy from you, whether it's buy from you with dollars or buy in with you as it relates to their mind share and engagement. So at the surface, there's really nothing wrong with this design construct of the essence of the X. So when you look at it a little bit deeper and you begin to understand the impact of this approach, it's important to see that for many of us, our CX efforts are really about creating conditions so that we can get more loyalty from our clients. Loyalty, as we know, translates into repeat business, referrals, and lower cost of sales. So if you're getting loyalty as the result of your CX efforts, you're likely seeing the positive benefits that come with this. Now let's take employee experience as an example. Many of our efforts in creating employee experience is to get and to keep the best and brightest talent. Whether we engage our employee experience at the recruiting or promotion level, or we engage in professional development and other career development offerings to really get talent to want to be with us. Now, the revenue experience is a little bit more obvious. I mean, isn't the whole point of engaging in a sales approach is actually to get sales or to get revenue? Yet, when we think about our sales approach, often when we approach revenue experience, it's often with this mindset of the rigor of a pipeline. Sell, sell, sell. And then we look at the ABCs of closing, always be closing, so that we can get to the next sell. Now, while this produces a high degree of revenue, the opportunity is really much more focused on the organization and its self-interest in getting to sales or revenue. Now, lastly, when we think about the BX or brand experience, there are amazing things that we've been observing in the marketplace to really create a much higher quality of marketing and branding that allows us to get recognition. We often see this through how we position, how we talk about the features or advantages or benefits of our services to potential clients. And whenever we engage in things like pro bono or charitable giving, often we will promote our efforts and our offerings in a year-end review or at the holiday season when we're talking about the number of hours or the numbers of dollars raised. Ultimately, when we do that well, it gives us the condition to get recognition that ultimately allows us to attract more clients for loyalty, best and brightest talent to become our employees, and ultimately to really woo or attract prospects or potential clients to get sales. Now, when we look at this, you might say, good, this is great. Not seeing what the problem is. In fact, some of you might be saying, okay, Captain Obvious, what are we to learn about this? Well, what I would suggest to you is, again, there's nothing inherently wrong when we look at the opportunities of our X factors to drive a benefit. What I'd like to posit, though, is our approach simply incomplete. Not bad, but not as great as it could be if we reimagine what the ultimate X factor would look like in influencing us to achieve these outcomes. So the question is, what if? What if we had the courage to widen our perspective and to find a method or the essence of the X to not only help people, your stakeholders, to like you, that we offer an and in that process, where the essence of the X was to help people to like you and hear me clearly, to like who they are when they're with you, to become the better version of themselves when they're engaging with you, to elevate the human experience or condition because we design for that in the ultimate X factor. How much would people be willing to buy or buy in then? What might be possible as we revisit our model? So once again, the current design, by and large, creates these very tangible and very measurable benefits. When we look at, though, the essence of the X to have both a get quality and a give quality, here's what might be available if we widen our view. Not only would we create conditions in client experience that would derive a get of loyalty, how might we invest or engage in efforts that also give hope to clients, helping clients become the best version of themselves? Once again, when we look at employee experience and getting talent, what would it look like to design our employee experience where we could also give purpose, mastery, autonomy, focus, helping the best and brightest do their best work on purpose and with purpose in our organizations? Now, when we reimagine or revisit the revenue experience, not only would it create a capacity for us to get sales, but what would it look like to design that experience such that we can give wisdom, deposit value, whether or not a client or a prospect actually buys from us in the near term? And then lastly, as we look at the brand experience, again, how do we continue to promote and celebrate our efforts that derive our ability to get more recognition and do it in a way that also gives inspiration, that creates capacity for clients, employees, our prospects, and our communities to activate and engage so that it's giving the value of inspiration that can be lasting. Now, when we look at the give and the get as a design model, the binding agent is to design with HFs. How the human experience as a significant design element allows us to reimagine the X in such a way that people not only like engaging us and doing business with us, it's the and they really like who they are and who they become when they're with us. If we think about this reimagined view, here's what I think is possible. You know, as we think about HX and the human experience, it would make sense for us to pause for a moment and to really examine the current state of our human condition. When we look at our present day, COVID-19, a global pandemic, we can't escape the reality that's impacting every human being. Recent studies suggest that over 1 million people today in the United States have been diagnosed with the coronavirus, COVID-19. Current estimates suggest that up to 135,000 Americans may die from this disease. When we look at statistics pre-pandemic, the National Institute on Health, NIH, estimates that more than 17 million Americans have had at least one major depressive disorder. That represents over 7% of the American population has experienced firsthand the condition of depression. When we examine anxiety, that number rises to 40 million Americans have been diagnosed or have reported some condition that involves anxiety. That's roughly 18% of the American population. As we look ahead, a number of mental health experts are beginning to discuss what they're referencing as a shadow pandemic, with mental health and well-being being challenged at levels unprecedented. And when you look at the tens of millions of people, new people reporting depression and anxiety, that this shadow pandemic will produce a level of trauma and suffering that we've never experienced or matched before. Now, I realize when we talk about the human condition and I offer these statistics, it can truly be a Debbie Downer. But we can't ignore, as we examine our future, as we begin to realign our efforts to return to work, and as we think about our roles as X Factor leaders, we have to get familiar and embrace the discomfort. And we have to have a sober view of what client experience and employee experience will look like in the future, how we'll activate our revenue experience to drive new sales and new business, and ultimately how we communicate our brand experience in such a way that shows a degree of empathy and compassion, being tuned in instead of tone deaf, as we talk about who we are and who we want to be in service to our respective clients and target markets. Now, as we examine the truth of this human condition, we get an opportunity to take a fresh look. And right now, I want you to think about when it comes to design, in fact, human-centered design, it always begins with first understanding, what do human beings actually need? Now, if you've ever attended any kind of psychology course, you probably have heard of this man, Abraham Maslow. Now, Maslow was a psychologist, and he was a pretty progressive psychologist. And in fact, he is often credited with doing the original investigation, the original research on what human beings need. So much so that Maslow's hierarchy of needs has seeped into the lexicon of our popular culture. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Maslow, essentially in 1943 and then again in 1954, he examined the hierarchy or the pyramid of what human beings need to essentially be the best version of themselves. And his original research suggested that human needs are satisfied in a stair step or an incremental fashion. Now, in recent past, many psychological researchers have challenged whether or not Maslow's pyramid or hierarchy still stands up, whether or not human beings actually need to have that baseline need satisfied before they have a longing or an interest in satisfying the next level of need. But what I can tell you is that all of the experts have come together with a general alignment that these 5 human needs are inarguable, whether they occur sequentially or they occur in a more random or sort of at different entry points. The reality is we cannot escape that human beings need at the core physiological coverage, which is food, safety, and shelter. Human beings need safety needs to be met, which is often through the form of a job, health, and finances. Then as we look at the belonging and connection needs, this is where we start to see relationships, that sense of identity that comes with community and collaboration. Human beings then would ultimately need opportunities to really grow esteem. One of our basic needs is to be seen, to be recognized, and to have an opportunity to play at our best or to our strengths. And then as we examine the human need of self-actualization, or more simply said, becoming the best version of ourselves, that every human being has a deep longing at some level for all 5 things. Imagine how much it costs when you have stakeholders, clients, employees, and community that are not playing at their best, are not feeling this sense of purpose and connection, and are not creating opportunities to really live into their strengths. So when we understand human needs and we understand what's possible, well, there's some great news. I mean, ultimately, when we think about this is terrific news for professional services firms. Number one, because right now, wherever a human being works, lives, shops, eats, worships, whether it's white collar, blue collar, no collar, we are generally all being impacted with the same disruption regarding our desires and human needs. Number two, whether it's direct or indirect, we are all equally dysregulated on all 5 arenas. So right now, the playing field is very level for innovation and design and to think about a future that includes the and. And ultimately, when you think about professional services, when you think about the economic model of professional services, we can't ignore the unique advantage that we have as we step into this next horizon. We are in the human being business in professional services, which gives us another level of advantage to really elevate our X factors, have the give and the get, and really begin to see what's possible for professional services. And yet, what does this really have to do with our business models? Well, I will share with you, it means absolutely nothing unless we have the courage and the desire and the curiosity to radically reimagine the X. So as we come back to our model, I'm going to spend the remaining time with you today giving you a taster, giving you a sense of what's possible when we look at the X with fresh eyes. It's about getting the baseline of things that are already present in the design efforts that we may have in place, and it's opening the door for a new level of design through human experience. So let's talk a little bit about client experience. Now, because we're in professional services, we all know there are lots of opportunities for handoffs and for balls to get dropped. And so one of the benefits in really designing with purpose are our utility of systems and checklists and checks and balances that really create some consistency on what it feels like to be a client. Now, when you think about consistency in our checklist, this is often in the areas where we are developing communication plans, or how we manage projects, or how we handle handoffs, or ultimately how we navigate our client experience when it comes to fees or budgeting. And in some cases, how do we make sure that we're investing in our clients, showing gratitude and appreciation? I think one of the hallmarks, though, of our client experience is the excellence that we have in engaging client feedback programs. Some of the best and brightest professional services firms understand that one of the ways to elevate client experience to get more client loyalty is to have a really thoughtful client feedback program. Now, for most, client feedback is about asking questions of your clients, receiving insights and input that will then allow you to course correct, do continuous improvement, and really check in, benchmark how you're doing on things like quality, service, and responsiveness. And those inputs create favorable and measurable outcomes for our efforts. But what if? What if we could rethink our client feedback systems through the lens of being in service to our clients? What would be true about how we engage in client feedback in a way that could leave a deposit or create something of value that actually helps our clients benefit from participating in our feedback programs as much as it benefits us? I share with you an example of a very innovative firm that I've had the privilege of working with for almost 20 years. They were early adopters, early pioneers in client feedback. And what they quickly recognized is that they were not only asking great questions that were informing how to be in better client service to their clients, they also recognized that if you're engaging clients to give input, why not include a wider range of future casting questions? And in doing so, they began to ask clients about their predictions, about their business models, about the things that they were looking at ahead, the challenges that they were experiencing, and to really begin to examine what they would be investing in for the future. This enterprising professional services firm readily took the inputs from all of that client feedback, including those future casting questions, and very quickly began to publish a report that would be then given back to the clients who participated, such that they would have the benefit of benchmarking, peer alignment, and to have some data that they can use to increase their influence. Beyond that, we also began to see the birth of new opportunities new efforts that would produce chances for clients to start to get together. And this firm has done an excellent job of engaging peer-to-peer networking opportunities, group-related activities where now clients can convene, where they can have opportunities to gain access to each other. And they have a capacity to be resourced by additional professionals in the firm and to widen their networks for career and other business solutions. This firm even took it a step further to use this community as an outgrowth of their client feedback to give clients an opportunity to dream out loud. And that dream out loud has opened doors for resourcing wishes on bucket list. In fact, some of the most creative were creating access to meet childhood sports heroes or to have the chance to fly in an F-16. That's the impact of human-centered, HX-centered client feedback, where it creates the benefit for your firms and it gives a sense of hope for what possibilities may lie to elevate your clients to the next level of their best. All right, let's look now at employee experience. And more specifically, some of the innovation that we've been seeing in professional services when it comes to recruiting or promoting talent, which, if I may, are a little bit reminiscent of the TV show Bachelor, Bachelorette. Now, if you own a television or have been in a grocery stand looking at a popular magazine, you probably know a little bit about the Bachelor or Bachelorette franchise and how important it is to be focused on getting a rose. But if you think about recruiting and the promotion processes, they really do mirror a lot of what happens in the arc of the Bachelor or Bachelorette, sans the fantasy suites, I might add. But in doing so, if you begin to see that there is an outreach to a community of people, each person falling more and more in love as they're being wooed by the Bachelor or Bachelorette, each week, groups of people receive the rose or the invitation to come back for the next week, more wooing, more falling in love, more experience, until such time as we get to the end. And the program concludes with a final rose, a single rose to one person who gets invited in many cases or proposed to for marriage. For every other person who does not receive the rose, we often see the exits where you've got men and women, grown men and women weeping, albeit they're in a limo, but there is a sense of sadness, shame, pain, and regret that happens when they don't receive that single final rose. Now, when you look at our recruiting and promotion processes, while again, I've taken some liberties to make this comparison, what if our experiences not only allowed us to identify and to get the best talent for the job, what if this experience actually made the candidates' lives more productive, that it deposited value for the candidates' experience, having had the benefit of simply engaging with our organizations or posting, if you will, for that job promotion? What would be true then? Take, for example, one of the most progressive professional services firms I've met in years, who is radically reimagining the recruiting and promotion process in their organizations. Not only are they engaging a lot of the innovations with their online technologies and tools, they're taking it a step ahead. They're using software and other technologies to eradicate and to eliminate bias that can often happen through the words that we use in a job posting, to how we organize the expectations in our job descriptions, and ultimately how bias has a way of creeping in to the actual interviewing questions. They also are thinking of it as a privilege. When anyone applies or posts for a promotion, they are meaningfully begin to offer services that will help the candidate do really, really well in any interviewing process, providing access to tips and techniques on how to put their best foot forward, helping them think about how they sell themselves or message themselves when they have an opportunity to be interviewed. Even if a person doesn't advance in the process, there's still value being deposited having taken the initiative to apply. Then as we look at the progressive levels of interviewing, there's opportunities not only to advance and to get opportunities to meet subject matter experts and talent, The firm is also creating more personal connection and coaching. Even when people aren't invited to the next round, they get the benefit of very specific professional development or career development advice. Further to that, they're also opening up their networks, making offers to introduce or to widen the support of the candidate and finding new opportunities outside of their professional services firm. But it doesn't stop there. They're also continuing to move through when anyone applies for the job or posts for the job. They are also looking for ways to compensate or remunerate the heavy investment of time, and whether that's on a monetary basis or in the case of internal, they are utilizing this opportunity for more targeted mentoring, and in some cases, how they make investments in the professional development, coaching, and other career opportunities for individuals simply taking the initiative. So when we look at a widened view of this employee experience, yes, it will culminate in a rose. A single person will get the final offer. But by widening it to see this part of employee experience as a tool to deposit value, that's when we see the bouquet of opportunities that can leave others with a real sense of purpose, and that gives a sense of focus and opportunity that lasts well beyond that recruiting or promoting experience. Now, when we look at revenue experience, suffices to say, it is about sales. And I am not against at all the desire of having a sales approach or a revenue experience that's very much about winning the work, making it rain, as our piggy bank and coins would symbolize. Yet, when you think about most conventional sales methodologies, if you look at how they're most designed, they're very set on a rigor of you've got to ask the right questions, you've got to qualify, you've got to find pain, you've got to offer a solution that meets the pain or satisfies the need, and then you close the deal. And again, on face value, there's nothing inherently wrong with a disciplined approach to selling. But I would submit, particularly in a professional services environment, particularly with doer sellers, that effort can leave the prospect feeling strong-armed, manipulated, truth-bended, in a way that can leave a bad taste in the mouth of whether or not they want to do business with your firms going forward. So here's what an HX-inspired revenue experience looks like. It removes that sales as an act of self-interest, all about the doer seller, all about the firm winning the work. It removes or replaces sales as an act of self-interest with a human experience inspired methodology known as sales as an act of service. And when we think about acts of service, it's like giving the bacon. It's meeting the client or potential client or prospect where they are. And for engaging with us in revenue experience, it allows us to deposit value. Now, the bacon's got to match the kind of bacon that the client or prospect would need, whether it's pig, turkey, plant, or chicken. But the idea of sales as an act of service is about giving wisdom. Take, for an example, a law firm that I've worked with. They had an opportunity to pitch their #1 target prospect for a major class action. Going into the pitch, they knew they had a very low percentage of opportunity to be selected. That these types of cases, the incumbent firm has a unique advantage because there's been a tremendous amount of investment already made, getting to the point when it's publicly known that the case has been certified as a class action. But this wise firm knew this was their #1 prospect. This was an opportunity to have access, to showcase and audition what it would feel like to be their client. So they decided to really get generous. They documented all of the wisdom they knew about the jurisdiction, about the judge, about opposing counsel. They assembled a sample of different arguments that they had argued on behalf of other clients who were similarly situated. And they assembled all of this in an executive briefing. When they got to the live pitch meeting and they're in front of the decision makers, they began to share their insights within this executive briefing. And it was very clear that their generosity was palpable to the decision makers, so much so that the general counsel said, "We need to level with you. We are not going to hire you to represent us. We're really too far in with the incumbent firm. And it doesn't seem fair that you would give us all of this great intelligence and insight and for us not to compensate or be able to pay you in return. But the wise lawyers said, no, we want you to have the executive briefing. We know that you're not likely to hire us for this case. To which the general counsel said, well, then why are you doing it? And they wisely said, it's because we want you to win. And rarely, if ever, have I ever heard at the end of a sales pitch when a prospect says, man, this is something special. I can't wait until we get sued again. You know your revenue experience has deposited wisdom, has deposited value, has left a mark when your prospect is wishing a lawsuit on themselves so that they can work with you in the future. And again, as an epilogue, the economics do tell a good story that strategy worked, as measured by the tens of millions of dollars that they've been able to glean by working with this client on work that was assigned in the future. Which leaves us with this. Let's talk about our brand experience for a quick moment. I am amazed at all of the great efforts that have been deployed inside of the brand experience, particularly when we look at logo and identity and creative and color and content. How we've really elevated our games through all of our media, digital, social, paper, face-to-face, our events and our sponsorships. All of these things have really gone next level in professional services. And they are designed to really promote and build on reputation in a way that creates the attraction or gets recognition for what's possible. I will tell you, though, that now starring us is not a bad thing to aspire to. It is simply incomplete. And when we look at brand experience through the lens of human experience, we have a tremendous opportunity to reimagine now starring clients, now starring charitable causes, now starring our communities by having a reimagined way of how we promote and engage. In 2006, a small shoe company that we now know as Tom's began a movement. And it was a buy one, give one movement. For every pair of Tom's shoes that are purchased, another pair was given to a person in need. And this give-get mindset, this other-centered mindset, created a groundswell where a throng of fast followers really began to examine how they're promoting their charitable good and pro bono work in a way that allows others, the consumers or stakeholders, to participate. This buy one, give one, we've seen it apply with flu shots, with eyeglasses, and donation of meals. And I will tell you that professional services firms are also getting into this effort of creating a brand experience that helps others be the best version of themselves while they're doing business with us. And it's coming through with a couple of quick examples. Consider the professional services firms that does joint planning around all of their strategic pro bono and charitable giving, where clients have an input and an opportunity to engage. Think about another firm who has an annual giving effort where every employee and team member is given a $100 bill, and they are offered the opportunity to invest that $100 bill in anything or any person that they would find valuable, provided one stipulation is met. The employee simply needs to come back and tell the story about who was impacted and how the community showed up. It's amazing what will happen with our brand experiences when we create access to experience us not only doing really good work, but how we are doing good for something bigger than ourselves. And those $100 investments have turned into pooled investments. These $100 investments have inspired other people to match or participate in communities at large. And not only are charitable opportunities being satisfied, the stories are so heartwarming when you see the baseball uniforms that were funded by acts of generosity from this firm. When you begin to see how human beings that have had home distress or been impacted by a fire or flood, how these funds have inspired home repairs. Or what about the child care fund that was set up for a single mom and having the ability to have quality access to quality child care? See, it's our ability to have human connection. And by creating brand experiences that have the and, not only about getting recognition, but also giving the inspiration That's when the human experience is most felt. And where from here? What's possible then for professional services firms? Firms that are in the business of human beings. Well, I can say this, when you have the courage to consider HX as the ultimate X factor, where you're designing for not only the value that you'll derive from any of your X factor opportunities, but you're also designing for the and of giving something of greater value so that stakeholders like you and like who they are when they're with you. Here's what's possible. As leaders of the X Factor initiatives in your firms, we have a capacity to be superheroes, to care for and invest our energies in our spheres of influence that can produce ongoing and sustainable, profitable growth and human flourishing. So you're here. You're here as an X Factor leader of your firms and an incredibly valuable member, contributor, and co-creator in this community of CXPS. I can't wait to see what we learn and grow and develop together. Thanks for being here.
Wow, thank you for such a powerful and potent message. I know I learned a lot, and I look forward to applying these lessons at Client Savvy, just like I'm sure those who are watching and listening right now are looking forward to applying these lessons in your own firms. Speaking of, we have a great community here inside CXPS, Client Experience in Professional Services, and we hope you will join the CXPS community if you haven't already. By joining CXPS, you get to see and interact with great content like this, not just these on-demand recordings, but also live, interactive, online encounters through the Mural application that we're using, and live Friday Q&As with our schedule of speakers that we have coming at you all year long. We're not just bringing you webinars, we're bringing you real education and opportunities to engage and contribute. So we, as a community, can push the envelope and the boundaries for what CX, EX, and the overall human experience can be in professional services. I invite you to visit www.clientexperience.org to learn more about this community and join us. We'll put you into a cohort of peers. These will be the 8 to 10 people you spend a lot of time with in the next several months or years, working together and solving CX and EX problems in your own firms as a group. This group has become my own personal board of directors when it comes to CX in my organization, and I know they can be the same for you. So again, clientexperience.org, and look for our regularly scheduled knowledge sharing modules. They'll be released about every 2 weeks. In these knowledge sharing modules, we'll release content on a Sunday, both video and podcast version for you to watch or listen on demand. We'll have the mural activities all week long to interact with your peers in a synchronous and asynchronous manner. And then those live Q&As on Friday with breakout sessions to meet and network with new people inside the community. Thanks so very much. We appreciate your time and attention and look forward to seeing you at an upcoming breakout and networking session soon.